Good morning. The meeting will come to order. The regular historic review committee meeting that was postponed from last week's date. Okay, we'll start. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the minutes from?
So moved.
That all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the meeting, the reading of the minutes is moved. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved. Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Minutes from the November meeting accepted. Okay, on the agenda today, we have the consideration of the objection filed with the town building official to the issuance of demolition permit relating to the structure of 30 Maple Street. We'll start with comments from the public. Well, maybe before that, why don't we go around the room and introduce ourselves? My name is Mark Markevich.
I'm Frederick Whitmer. Rose.
Rose Rothbart, sorry, remote.
And in the back.
I'm Amy Sabatini, Mr. Roger, on behalf of Snell.
Sorry.
I'm Robert Mantilio.
I'm Susan Guerrero.
I'm Christopher Shepard.
Okay, sorry. Regarding the objection to the demolition, are there any comments from the public?
I do. I'm not sure how you want to run this. If you want to hear from the objector first, or if you'd like to.
I think we should hear from the objector first.
That's fine.
I think, perhaps maybe you could begin.
Yes, I wanted to say, first of all, I've never received the official letter, certified letter that I'm supposed to get. I've received many others before, during, and after this procedure, but the contractor never sent me a letter alerting me that this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that needs to be reported.
Okay, so noted.
And I don't know if there were others that are on that list who were eliminated for this project.
I did not either.
Neither did I.
I did not either.
That's unanimous.
Okay.
Well, is this a legal meeting? If we were not notified?
It's legal as far as the filing of with the
Was noticed. I think it was noticed. I think it's the proceedings today, I think, are in concert with statutory and local ordinances. And even though you didn't get noticed, you were here. And that, I think, effectively over. If you hadn't been here, there might be an argument.
But no one might not. Anyway, the notice was finally published in the Advertiser. So I did have a chance to find out about it, although it was very obscure. I'm talking about the stick style building on 30 Maple Street. Now, apparently there is a lot of confusion, the way that the notice was written, because people do not understand that the school buildings are not the rectory. I'm not talking about the school buildings, the brick ones that are going to be demolished. I'm talking specifically about the house on 30 Maple Street. And I've talked to several parishioners who were unaware that that house was going to be demolished, because they kept telling me, oh, it's a terrible condition. And I said, no, it isn't. So we finally separated that out. The house is different from the school buildings, the brick school buildings, which are also noticed to be demolished. I'm talking only about the stick-style house at 30 Maple Street. I wrote the letter, November 30th, opposing the demolition of the building because well, for many reasons, it's been one of my favorite buildings in New Canaan for years. It's a very unusual example and an excellent example of what is called the stick style of architecture in New Canaan. And in 2012, we hired with funding from the state historic preservation. State Historic Preservation Office for 30 Maple Street. We had an inventory of the west side of the village and of their architecture in that area. And here is it in print. The Historical Society has several has a copy of it on a thumb drive, and anybody can go and ask to see it. It's the Historic and Architectural Survey, West Center Village, New Canaan, Connecticut, and this is it. And each page is a single house, a building. This is the one for the parish house or the convent, whatever we're calling it. And this is what the consultant wrote. Since 1958, this building has served as the convent for St. Aloysius Parish. This was written in 2012. It was built by clothing salesman and New Canaan postmaster Philo Thatcher around 1885. The imposing residence is significant as a rare example of the stick style in central New Canaan. And I must point out, the only other stick style building that I'm aware of in the entire town of New Canaan is the Red Cross building. So that's a double whammy. Then she goes on, and in her introduction, the consultant says, describing what the stick style is, this highly picturesque stick style owes much of its genesis to a mid-19th century European revival of late medieval picturesque building types, including the wooden chalet of alpine regions and the half-timbered cottages of Tudor England. American architects first began experimenting with such sources in summer resorts like Newport, Rhode Island, around the time of the Civil War. The term stick, coined by American architectural historians in the mid-1990s, refers to the use of crossed timbers and other stick-style elements as surface decoration, rather than as truly functional structural elements. A noteworthy example of the style is St. Aloysius Convent at 30 Maple Street. The geometric surface treatment and banked multi-pane casement windows on this handsome house are quite characteristic, which often has Tudor overtones. And in the Historical Society, I found just some information about Philo Thatcher, the original private homeowner who built it. His first wife was Kate Elmstead, whom he married in and then she died in 1860. And then he married Emma Hoyt, whose father was town clerk, postmaster, and leader of the Republican Party. And so legend has it, the local representative of the famous Underground Railway set up by the abolitionists during the Civil War. That is his daughter's, his wife, father. Then it also says, their daughter, Philo and Emma White's daughter, Mabel Thatcher. Mabel Thatcher, do everybody know her name? She was the woman who purchased the Benedict Eels Thatcher house at 453 Carter Street, formerly owned by the Butterworths. And she restored it and furnished it with antiques. This is in the landmarks of New Canaan. The New Canaan postmaster, then another reference to Philo, was the New Canaan postmaster, Philo Thatcher, who was appointed by President Garfield, but he surrendered his commission without serving. Nevertheless, the house, we don't know who the architect was, and it was built at about the same time as the Red Cross House. So, which was commissioned by the Episcopal, St. Mark's Episcopal Church across the street to be their rectory, incidentally. So the question is, who was the architect? And we think that the Red Cross House, and possibly this one, was built through building designs by one of the Bridgeport architects, famously known as the, I can remember famously, I think of it, Palliser and Palliser, the architectural firm in Bridgeport that published building books. You could buy the plans right from them. They didn't even have to be on site. It's possibly another Palliser book, because this was their style that they publicized all over the United States, but particularly along the East Coast. Anyway, it is a significantly important architectural element in our landscape, and this, I am so disappointed that this is now threatened, because I thought a few years ago, when they reconfigured the church and opened up a space that you could, while you're waiting for the traffic light on Cherry Street, going toward Pine Street, you could look to the left, and there it was, beautifully framed by other buildings on the church property. But it was a great view, and it exists today. If you stop on Cherry Street and look to the left, right after you pass the church, there is this terrific view of the backside of this building, which looks just as original as it did the day it was built. And I think that this is a real treasure in our village, and we should do everything, and the church should do everything that can to preserve this building. I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mimi. Anyone else?
Would you like to hear from me?
Sure.
Could I get whoever's speaking to say their name very clearly, because there's a little muffling and maybe an address or something?
Sure. My name is Amy Zavatakis from Rucci Law Group, and I'm representing St. Aloysius Church.
Can you spell your last name, please, Amy?
Yes. Z as in zebra, A, B as in boy, E, T as in Tom, A, K, I, S as in Sam. And the law firm is Rucci Law Group.
Got it. Thank you so much.
My name is, as I said, I'm Amy Zavatakis. I'm working with the church on their redesign for the property and for the school. We do have an application currently pending before the Planning and Zoning Commission, which will allow a rebuild of the school and a new church community center to be built. Part of the plan is to reconfigure the space to remove one of the driveways on the property so that we can have a great green lawn adjacent to the church, which is better both for the environment and for the school children, who will have outdoor space as opposed to basically a parking lot, which is what's behind the school currently. I did want to submit for the record, we did have a structural engineer take a look at the building. This is 30 Maple Street. Well, actually, before I get into that, let me just talk about the building itself. So the church purchased this property in 1914. Shortly thereafter, the original church on the property was built, the building that we now know as Stapleton Hall. That building has a great deal of historic significance. It is a central feature of downtown New Canaan. It is very visible, and that building is being maintained. And in fact, there'll be some interior rehabilitation done as part of this capital campaign. The building that is at 30 Maple Street was on the property when the church purchased the property. It was originally used to house some of the priests. And then contrary to what was stated in the historic paperwork, it was in 1986, it was the nuns moved into the building and they used it. They lived there. These were nuns that taught at the school. I'm still researching exactly when the nuns stopped living there. It was for a short period of time. The church tried to use it for their religious education classes, and they simply can't. The building is not in good shape. It is in terrible shape. It is structurally unsound, and the rooms itself are of such a size that it really cannot be used. So because it can't be used for religious education, parishioners are currently forced to have religious education in their homes, which is not something that the diocese is in favor of at all. So that's why we're looking to build a community center. That's where the religious education will take place. So as I said, I have a structural engineer's report, which reviews, as I said, the issues with the building. It is, and I also will admit that, would like to say that according to this report, the structural engineer believes that the home was built around 1906. So, and the foundation is very poor. And if we were to try to reuse it, the amount of work that would need to be done is extreme and extremely cost prohibitive. And I say that because the church did look into that. In the fall, the church invited both the some representatives of the Historic Society and some representatives of the Preservation Alliance to tour the building. The Historic Society said that we asked if there was anything in the house that they thought was structurally significant that should be removed before demolition. The Historic Society said no. We did agree that we would thoroughly photograph the building so that it could be part of the Historic Society's files. The Preservation Alliance did at that time indicate that they thought there was some significance to the building. So our architect did review the possibility of renovating this building so it could be used, and it simply is not possible. We have looked into it. I think that that's all. So, you know, I think that I understand where Ms. Finley is coming from as far as the look of the building, but I'm not sure that it has really the same amount of significance as she's attached to it. If it was built or purchased by the church in 1914, the original owner did not live there for very long. And it has simply been, it hasn't been, to the contrary, well maintained at all. It is in very poor structural condition. So let me submit that. That's the structural engineer's report, yes.
Archer Engineering Company, PC, dated December 9, 2022. Consisting of 3 pages.
Okay.
Are there any questions of the committee that I can answer?
There's a sign, or I looked at the building today and it says 1907. Who put that?
I don't know, but I can find out the answer.
I take it since the church has owned the building since 1914, its current condition is due to the maintenance or lack of maintenance done by the church. Is that correct?
I think partially, I think there also were, and this is in that report, the foundation was not well built at the time that the building was built. And I actually have, I have from the Historic Society's files, I have the report from 1987, I guess the 2012 report was the second time that someone had looked at this building. In 1987, there's a statement, there's a strong water table between the wood of the house and the brick of the foundation. And as you'll see in that report, there are some major issues with water incursions. And like I said, the foundation would, if any attempt was made, all of the floors are sagging, and he described it as actually bouncy. And the foundation itself would have to be completely rebuilt.
Has any work at all been done on the house since the church bought it in 1914?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I can find that out. Honestly, I don't believe so, other than some minor, work to make it livable for the nuns.
So the condition of the house is really effectively the responsibility of the church since 1914, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we have two different quite opposing opinions about the state of the house. Are there any comments regarding this presentation?
This lady in the back.
Yes. Oh, okay, so another
If you want to take this seat. No, I just have one sentence. It sounds like they were just inviting left to me.
Certainly appears that way, I would say that this place is, I don't see any indication of any. They never maintained anything, obviously, what you say.
I'm not gonna say they didn't maintain it, it's not of, it was, as I said, used for the priests, and then the nuns lived in there, and since the nuns moved out, the church has not been able to use it due to the room size. It is not ADA compliant. It's just not functional for a church building.
What's the capital campaign raise? What's the amount you're looking for to do what you're proposing to do?
I don't know the answer to that question. But,
any other comments from the public? Yes.
My name is Robert Mantilia. I live at 115 Putnam Road, and I'm a parishioner there. Just to correct the description, if you look from Cherry Street down that roadway, you're looking at two raised dumpsters before you get to the house, and with a fence around it, right in back of the house. So it's not exactly an open view of this house. I'm active in various parish groups, and there was a period of time where we tried to use the house for one of our meetings, the group that I'm with, about 10 people. The rooms are very small, not practical, not certainly fit for a meeting on a regular basis. So we stopped using it after 2 or 3 times. So it wasn't neglect of the property and all. It was just, it's just not practical. And it's more or less in the way of anything. So those are just my comments.
Okay, let's open it to the discussion among the committee now. Rose, do you have any comments?
Sure.
One thing that appears to be quite at odds is the opinion of the state of the house itself. The soundness of its construction and.
Well, yeah, it'd be very interesting to be able to read the engineer's report. That was something that I was present when the NCPA toured the building, and I believe the architects were there, and we were told that there had been an engineering report done, and we did ask, I believe that may have been in August, I don't remember exactly. And we did ask if we could see the report because there were several of us there. I was there, Carl was there, and to us, from what we could see, and we went in from the basement through to the attic, there was nothing obvious wrong with the house. There was a major, it seemed like a major plumbing leak that had caused some plaster to fall. Personally, and I've looked at a lot of buildings in my time, it was one of the best looking buildings I've ever seen. And I've looked at quite an array of buildings. The foundation looked very good. Now, certainly, I'm not an engineer, but there was nothing that I saw that would have caused me to call in an engineer. And the foundation itself looked very good. The beams in the basement looked incredibly solid. I didn't even see any sort of insect activity, which is pretty standard stuff. But I would be very interested in reading the engineer's report.
Yeah, I think we would need some little time to read it. We just received it, so.
Right, exactly. That certainly could shed light on things. But in general, yes, it's one of two buildings in town of this type, and the other one is also being threatened. And it's pretty pristine example of it, both on the exterior and the interior. And I understand what they're saying about the usability and all of that. And this is a building that it's not like, this was a surprise. They've owned the building since what, 1914? So they've known what they had. But my thing is, for me, and these last few years have been really, my entire time in New Canaan has been sort of like, to me, New Canaan needs to decide, do you support preservation or do you not support preservation? But the other thing I'm finding more and more is New Canaan needs to decide, what are we going to teach our children? Are we going to teach our children to, that it's fine to just tear things down and send the debris somewhere else? And, do we just obliterate things? Do we obliterate all of our history? And do we take that refuse and just send it somewhere else? Okay, so I'm obviously remote. I'm down in my home state of Alabama. I was behind where a lot of this debris goes. I'm in where the other stuff gets sent, one of those locations. And I was behind one of those trucks that was just full of either plaster or drywall. You would have thought it was snowing. The stuff was flying all over the place. And my home community, which I'm not in right now, is pretty much being destroyed because of it's one of those other places. New Canaan doesn't see where all this stuff goes. So I'm all for education. I'm very much for Christian education, but we got to think about what we're doing to our planet. And I'm sorry, but that's part of preservation. The greenest building is the building that already exists. And talking about we're giving more green space and that's going to be great for the planet. Well, guess what? You just put a bunch of stuff in a landfill. So when we're talking about preservation, it's a bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And we need to think about that. And we need to think about what we're telling our children and what we're teaching our children. When things go away, where do they go? And that's all part of this. And that is part of this discussion. Thank you.
Ed, do you have any comments?
I tend to agree with what Rose said very much. I'm so disappointed to see the attempts to remove some of these older marvelously characteristic buildings of their period. The disappointment in when I first heard about the Red Cross building, which isn't an historic district, but this is another historic building, and I just find that it should be kept as an important building for the town, for the residents of the town. I just hate to see these things destroyed.
Frederick?
I was troubled. I went by 30 Maple Street before today's meeting, walked around it. And candidly, I thought the outside had not seen any material maintenance within any reasonable period of time. There's lots of stuff falling off of the siding of the house, and paintbrush has not been in presence, I don't think, of the house for many years. Is that a reason to tear it down? It's a reason to criticize the owner, it seems to me. And the owner is coming to us and saying, we don't have a choice, we have to tear it down. Well, I think you do have a choice, and there's no indication, from what we have heard, that any serious thought has been given to rehabilitating this building and preserving what really is a unique and beautiful piece of architecture. When I walked around it, I thought of Councilman Gregory's cottage, because it gives that feeling of the town, and frankly, I thought it was completely unique. I didn't think of the Red Cross house being the same style. But I believe that more thought and planning should be given to an alternative to preserve this house, because otherwise you really are destroying a significant part of whether the house was built in 1886 or 1907 or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What it matters is what it looks like, and it could be a gem, could be used, and the interior could be rehabilitated. I think probably within a reasonable amount of effort and thought, and especially an intention to preserve it. That's my view, is that although the public comment that said that this is demolition by neglect is a fairly harsh statement, I think it's completely accurate.
I tend to agree. I mean, I very much appreciate the presence of this building in town, in New Canaan, and I found Mimi's comment very interesting and informative, especially highlighting the fact that it and the Red Cross building are the only stick-style buildings in town, which is interesting for me to find out that it was a movement in late 19th century. And it is part of history. It was, in certain way, it represents a very American sense of optimism and prosperity of that time. And as a piece of history and culture, it is I think, a very nice asset to the town. Furthermore, I was looking at the master plan of the development that's being planned. And it seems to me that it should not interfere with the rest of the construction. Its location is right here where there's a parking lot being shown. So to maintain it at that spot, I don't think it would detract from the master plan. In fact, it might even add by filling in the void at the intersection of the church, the original church, and the new structure. It has a very solid and remarkable presence on Maple Street. I think having an assertive, a solid piece of history in town is very appropriate and needed. With a large library building across the street. And I would very much favor the reconsideration of the demolition and considering a use that it could be put to. So that's my view. Are there any other comments from the public or the committee?
May I respond to a couple of points that were raised?
Yes, please.
I guess the first point, I'm not sure that it's relevant to this consideration, but I did want to respond to the comment about trucking the demolition debris to Alabama. One thing that I didn't mention again, because I didn't think it's relevant, is it is the church's intention to reuse the demolition debris, both from the school building and from this building, to fill and use as fill during the construction project, since none of the new buildings will have any sort of basement. So nothing, it is the intention not to truck anything off site. Of course, we'll need to review and make sure that there's no hazardous materials, but that is the plan currently. I also wanted to respond to the comment about where the parking is located. There is a requirement from the special permit that was issued when the church sanctuary was built, that there be not less than 190 parking spaces on the property. So the church needs those parking spaces in the location of where the 30 Maple Street is currently located. That is also the school drop-off area. One of the issues that we have now currently is there's not a clear pathway to drop the students off at the school so that they can safely enter the school. The new school will have a preschool as well. So the idea is to have a drop off, and again, this is programmatic, but just so that you understand, the idea is to have a drop off loop so that the students can be met and walked directly into the school. And
Where is the drop off?
the drop off loop will be basically right where 30 Maple Street is located currently.
Oh, I guess it's not on this drawing, right?
I'm not sure which I can,
Okay, all right.
I have other site plans that if the committee would like, I can.
So the proposal would be that you're going to demolish the house, bury it on site and turn it into a park.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
And yes, and there'll be additional green space elsewhere on the lot that is not there currently. And we will do whatever, if there's anything of value within the house, we've already offered that to the Historical Society. We've also offered to document it. We did spend and ask the architect to spend time looking into rehabilitation of the building, whether it could be expanded in order to be used for religious education. As Mr. Mantilia pointed out, the rooms, if you think about it, these were priests and nuns' bedrooms. That's the size of the rooms in this building. They are not able to be used for anything. First of all, it structurally is not sound enough to be rehabilitated, but it also is just functionally not proper for the use that the church needs of a building on site.
That isn't the summary conclusion of the report that's before, that you submitted to the committee, does not say it's impossible to rehabilitate. It says that there
It should be expected that extensive gutting and reconstruction of the existing house, framing along with underpinning and or replacement of foundations will be required.
And the architect, from trying to turn it into a functionally useful space, has determined that is not possible, and that will be part of our planning and zoning presentation.
But in point of fact, it doesn't have to be functionally useful to maintain the historical presence of the house and its aesthetic value to the community. Isn't that true?
It has to be functionally useful to be used by the church and as a building on the church property. This is owned by the church. The buildings on the church property need to be useful to the church. This is a nonprofit organization. There are limitations on what the church can do, and they need to have every building on the property be something that can be used. As I stated, I think the important building on this property is Stapleton Hall, and the church is doing everything that they can.
Find that
Retain that
difficult to
itself.
believe that it could not be used for something. I mean,
As
any
Mr.
building can be used for something.
But more importantly, and I have great respect for St. Aloysius and its parishioners, and I don't disparage anybody's intention here. But part of the usefulness of the building and the contribution that St. Aloysius can make to the community is to give this beautiful building to the community to see and to use. Doesn't have to be functional. You're not going to use it. You wouldn't use it as a schoolroom, even if it were rehabilitated. it would be used for something. And the aesthetic and architectural contribution that pertain this building would be a contribution that St. Aloysius would make to give back to the community for doing this. It seems to me to be a terribly practical view of the building has got to be able to do something, and we want to do it with it, or we turn it into dust. And that seems that's a binary choice that I don't think has to be made.
All right, well, I understand your position and I take note of it. I will say that the church has tried for many years to find use for this building. It has not been able to.
But I say with deep respect. But the church hasn't done very much to keep it up. From every outward appearance, when I asked you what had been done, you didn't know, and I respect that. And I suspect you don't know because there hasn't been anything done of any significant event to keep it going. So it is where it is because of what has been done over the 108 years that you've owned the building or whatever it is. But we are where we are.
Okay, I think there was another comment in the back.
Oh. I just don't think.
Could you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Susan Guerrero. I don't think that we should take the word of one architect as to what is architecturally possible.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, and your name?
My name is Christopher Shipper. I do not wish to comment regarding this property, but I do wish to be granted an indulgence from the committee to give you a short update on developments of the historic property on 8 Ferris Hill Road. Post this.
Oh, okay, well, let's have a vote first. I have with me a proxy vote from Marty Sperlunas, who says, I'll be absent for today's meeting. I would like to assign a proxy to you to vote in my place. I vote in favor of a 90-day delay for 30 Maple Street. The house remains one of the most intact historic structures in town. Its adherence to the principle of the stick style is remarkable. Signed, Marty Sperlunas. So, so that's his vote.
I move that we grant a 90-day suspension of any demolition.
90-day delay.
A second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
It's unanimous.
It's unanimous. So we're imposing the 90-day delay to revisit, reconsider if there's any way to save the building.
Thank you very much for your comments today. I appreciate them all. Thank you.
So the church and the committee then are now to meet together and discuss this with an architect. That is usually the process that happens. That this your architect or structural engineer or both will meet with the committee and have a discussion. That's what the 90-day delay is.
If you would like to schedule a meeting and would ask us to come back in, we would be happy to do so. I'll take my
Probably.
again, I'll take my instructions from the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So going back to, what was the comment you would like to make?
Sure. I just want to be granted a quick indulgence to give you a quick brief update on development on 8 Ferris Hill and get the core committee's guidance regarding a small dilemma that I've encountered. And it regards, I'll pass this down. I think Frederick, you're familiar with it. Rose, can you see this?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
You recognize it as the little
The
garage?
barn, yeah, yeah, garage, yeah. Mhm.
I have been
working at restoring 8 Paris Hill for about a year and a half. It's a labor of love. And I have changed my building design several times, and I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to add on to the existing house at the moment, but I do want to rebuild the garage into a barn-like structure at the back of the property. It's about, I'd say, 200 feet from the road, maybe 175 feet back. And the garage.
Let me interrupt, Mr. Shippers. Mr. Shippers is my neighbor. I'm deeply familiar with the property next door to.
I suspect all of you have been in that property or around that property one time or another. Here is the dilemma that I've encountered, which is this garage is in pretty dilapidated shape. It was built in 1960 and it is 560 square feet in size. Because it was built in 1960, it is over 50 years old. Because it is 560 square feet, it's over the 500 threshold, and therefore could be subject to
yes.
to your
Correct.
opinion.
Correct.
The dilemma I face is that having planning and zoning approved my planning, and also having had Preservation Connecticut, which holds the preservation easement on the property, as I think you're aware, Rose, right?
Yes, sir.
Preservation easement.
Mhm.
Both of those bodies have approved the redevelopment of this building into a kind of a thoughtful barn structure, which has more of an east-west orientation to allow, more, a broader front. And so I have the approval of the Preservation Connecticut to go ahead with this project. But when I went down to get my final building permit sign off, I was told that the historic committee would have to review whether this building can be taken down or not. So I'm.
Did you file for demolition?
We did. Well, actually, I think that the architect filed for renovation. So we're basically keeping the slab and the sill plate, but rebuilding the barn in a different orientation. And then we're adding on to it at the other end, which is in the plan.
Oh, so so the renovation includes demolition.
The renovation includes demolition by that definition. It does. So,
Okay.
so the interesting question for me is, I feel like I'm at risk of double jeopardy, which is I've gotten approval from Preservation Connecticut, which I think.
Did you get a building permit?
The building permit is in its final stage, and this is the question that's coming up now, which is, should there be a 90-day delay to take this building
But
down?
was there an objection?
No objection, because it hasn't been fully filed yet.
So you're coming
I
for,
don't know.
you're coming for.
There's a procedural.
Yeah, it's a preliminary review, which is in our ordinance. So that's what you're
Okay.
doing. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get to, which is,
Uh-huh.
I'm looking for a preliminary review from you to say you can or cannot. We have questions or we doubt it. I would say there was an older, bigger barn in the 19th century
Right.
that came down. This was built in 1960. It had a little bit of charm because it had a little front thing, but it is, as the picture shows, pretty dilapidated and not during my reign. And so I'm looking for guidance from you to say, it's falling under your bailiwick, but I always wonder if Preservation Connecticut said yes, and you said no, which legal rule would apply?
But without giving an opinion with respect to that,
Yeah,
you're building a shed. Is that going to be part of
no,
the
that's a
structure?
garden shed.
That's a garden shed.
Right.
So what you're proposing, because I live next door, I know where this is, you're keeping the slab.
Yes,
You're taking.
You're taking the
structure
footprint.
down.
I'm keeping the slab of the garage. And
Which is the
doubling it
footprint.
and then increasing the
Oh.
footprint
But you're increasing the footprint.
away from,
It's now going to face,
it's projecting out
it's
west.
projecting out west.
Right.
So that the side view is going to be less than the
Yes.
current view is.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, I think our ordinance says, unfortunately, Chris, that for preliminary review, and I don't have my ordinance with me, but I think we have to set up a meeting and alert all the neighbors, and actually, we actually have to advertise in the paper a certain period of time in advance. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I have the ordinance here.
Okay, look at preliminary review.
Property owners or
Mhm.
their agents may apply to historical review committee prior to filing an application for demolition permit for an advanced determination of whether the structure is of historical, architectural, or cultural significance to the town of New Canaan. The application shall be on a form provided by the building official, and the application fee shall be established by the Board of Selectmen. The Historical Review Committee shall hold a public hearing on the application
Mhm.
and shall cause notice of the public hearing to be mailed to the owners of all properties adjoining and across the street from the property on which the structure is situated. And to the New Canaan Historical Society, the New Canaan Historic District Commission, and any New Canaan taxpayer who has requested in writing from the town building official copies of any such notice filed pursuant to this ordinance. The committee shall cause notice of the public hearing to be published in a newspaper having substantial circulation in New Canaan at least 6 days prior to the date of the public hearing.
Yeah, it's a
So- I mean, there's a whole
Ridiculous.
procedure.
But doesn't it say may apply? What, I'm confused by this one.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that. I think I just squeaked over the hurdle for this requirement. But it would seem to me that this is a pretty significant financial cost to me in both time and, advice to do this. I'm just wondering if there isn't
What's your timing currently?
the excavator is on site. The timing is if you're going to excavate and pour a new foundation. I suppose they could excavate, put the foundation in for the extension. And then hold on the demolition of the building, but then the excavator sits around for 90 days or whatever the requirement is. Unless you vote to say, no 90-day requirement.
The problem, I deeply appreciate
Oh,
your
yeah.
problem, and I will state that my strong view would be that I can't personally see why this should not come down
Right.
within the historic structure, but I worry about following the ordinance and the process.
Yeah.
I'm worried actually for you.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't want somebody coming in after the fact. that's-
Okay, but you have a building permit.
I have a building permit. No. The building permit, all the paperwork is filed, the P and Z approval is there, preservation.
But you have
Connecticut
to
approved it.
pour the slab.
And it's there, well, I'm planning to excavate to put in, I need to put cement down for a crawl space,
Right.
right? I need to put the footings in. And so if I wait another month, I may go through the whole frost cycle and then it just delays everything.
So you're expecting to get the permit.
I'm expecting to get the permit, but the permit is now, on this edge of, well, there's demolition and therefore it's historical review and it's notification and it's this process. So I'm caught at this late moment, and it's a dilemma.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't know how you see your way to decide it, but you can understand my predicament, I think.
I mean, I think we would all, at any review of this, I would assume we would all. I don't think anyone would write a letter of objection, and I think we would all say no 90-day delay, even if that did come up. I mean, if we had a pre-review meeting, I would think we would all say that's fine. I've certainly been in that building and seen it from outside all around. It's
Yeah, I know
fine.
the building from some years ago too.
It's fine.
It's on its way to falling,
Yeah.
even if I don't do it.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say you should have someone come and blow on
Just
it.
lean against it, yeah.
so I guess the question would be, if I'm looking at my timing and everything,
Mhm.
it it's a dilemma, right? Obviously, I would love to say this could slip under the radar, given it's 60 square feet, and it's 60 square feet of porch, not building, but, and it's 11 years outside of the range.
Well, what did, hold it. When the building structure or part thereof to be demolished is 500 square feet or more, is that what you are?
The building with this little porch area is 560.
That's
The building, the interior building is 40.
But you're taking down the whole structure.
I'm taking down the structure down to the slab, which I'm going to reuse for
Yes.
the barn garage floor.
Right.
So the sill plate and the woodwork all comes down and then gets built back up. So I think the question was, is that a total demolition? Is that a partial demolition? Is it a renovation? You know, we're into this interpretive thinking, but I don't think there's a lot of interpretation coming from the building department. They're saying it's over 50, over 560.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go through the historic review.
Yeah, it's just this ridiculous extra stuff that goes along with this preliminary review thing is the problem. And you've talked to the the building official about it, and
Well,
that's-
I talked to Brian
Mhm.
yesterday, because I went
Yeah.
down and said, you know, where do I
Right.
stand? It's been in for 4 weeks.
Mhm.
And in the discussion, he said, well, you know, I'm looking at this, you know, he just pulled the file up and he said, well, what happens to this other one? I said, it's a renovation. He goes,
Mhm.
well, you take it down. I said, yeah, taking it down to the sill and building it back up and
Mhm.
reorienting the roof line. And he
Mhm.
said, well, that's demolition. And I said, well,
Yeah.
it wasn't, you know, that wasn't clear to me that it was a demolition or how we looked at it. So
But can you, I'll ask the practical end. In the previous discussion, I deprecated practicality for a moment, but let's be practical for a second.
yeah, let's be practical.
If you can excavate and extend it down. And we can publish all of this stuff, so we can have a meeting in early January.
Right, I think
Would that work? Because
that would work. When is the January meeting?
but it's January 19th currently.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but we can have a, you know, a
We can have a
meeting
special meeting, yeah.
anytime. Yeah, anytime.
By Zoom or by whatever means.
Correct.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I can submit this as this is about the amount of documentation I think you need. It's
Mhm.
got the Preservation Connecticut approval, it's got the architectural plans, and it's got the location of the property.
Here's,
Well, the ordinance says this has to be advertised 6 days in advance. Is that what it says, Mark?
think so.
6.
So 6 is what we're looking at, 6 days from now?
If I were in your shoes, I'd think about doing this. To give notice to everybody what you intend to do. Pursuant to the act, pursuant to the ordinance. No one will object.
Mm-hmm.
No one objects. That means the committee would not have the responsibility to pass on. The Whitmers will not object. They would get notice, for example.
And I know the Patels won't object.
And the Patels are behind the Shipper House, and I doubt the Colals.
They won't object. Good that they were all in favor of the plan anyway.
Correct. So that if you go through the technical requirements that would prompt no objection, you will therefore deprive the committee of jurisdiction to delay the demolition.
That's true. So like.
Now, this legal advice may be worth what you're paying for.
I'm spending enough that I'm going to take the. Rose, that sound right to you, maybe?
I think as long as we do, if that period of time works for you and we just, follow what's in that ordinance, that's what we got.
Each of my neighbors.
Yeah.
And request them to write back that they have no objection. And then bring that, send that to the committee chair. And then with that, say no objection to the demolition.
But do we have to have a meeting, Mark? Does it say that? Does it require us to have a meeting, or do we just have to do the letters if there's just no objection?
There's no objection. I don't think we have to have a meeting.
Yeah, this is a preliminary, so he doesn't have to, we don't have to do it's advertised and then we wait for the letters, and this is a preliminary process,
Seems logical.
proactive.
I'm sure that's not covered in this.
And you always these little exceptions.
Well, I think you should send the no objection letter to Brian.
Yes. There you go. And then Brian can go forward and say,
Right.
that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, as long as we follow the ordinance, we're good.
Right,
Okay,
yeah, because you want us to follow the ordinance because you don't want anybody else. Because the ordinance gives any person in town the right to object, to come in.
Right.
You'll
And this, I think, is probably the only building that has a preservation easement. Well, no, there's other buildings in town with preservation easements, a few others.
Yeah.
That actually come under this dual preservation. Connecticut says, okay, historical committee says, wait a second.
And you
And you want
have P
which-
and Z approval also,
So yeah, then I'm a double checker.
but you have P and Z approval also.
I have PZ approval already, yes.
And you didn't need it to put up the shed that you got.
No, it's 200 square feet.
Right.
okay.
I should say, by the way, that this structure is going to be using wood from the property, literally, on milled black locust posts. And into flooring and posts to be put into this new structure. And that the shed is also using 7x7 posts being built. Using milled wood from the property as well as locally rough milled, sawn milled wood from Wilton. As the pine siding.
I'm prepared to say that a number of trees have given their lives.
Yes.
For these structures.
The number of trees gave their lives so that I could put a septic system in when the room failed.
That's correct.
That was a hard choice to make, for no doubt. True. Sad but true. Thank you.
Okay, actually, we transgressed a little bit. We have a
Okay.
minor thing to continue with the meeting. Review of regular meeting dates. Did you all?
I want to say, excuse me, I don't want to interrupt the meeting, but I'm ready to leave. I hope that you will come and see the exhibit at the Historical Society now with the painting exhibit. It's a piece of history from Fort Canyon. Which I've curated, with one of the curators.
I'm a big fan of the historical
Team Society. And if you're interested, I'm glad to give you a tour.
I move to accept the scheduled meetings.
Okay, all in favor? Schedules accepted. Other business? No other business, right? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move, so I so move.
All in favor? Meetings adjourned.
I'll drop off a draft of my note to you
That's fine.
in your mailbox today
That's fine.
by 1 o'clock.
That's fine.
I know you're traveling, right? Aren't you heading out?
I'm January 1st.
Okay.
Can we share that, somehow share that engineer's report? Can somebody scan it and share it somehow?
Yeah,
It's only 3 pages, so you don't have to.
I'll send it to the group.
Thank you. That'd be great. I'd be
Thank
very
you.
interested to see it. And Chris Shipper,
Yes.
don't send your construction debris to Alabama.
No, actually, all the tree work I had done, nothing left the property. It was all kept on the property.
Okay. All right.
On this one, I'm gonna see whether I can save some of the barn board, but it's pretty hard when they toenail it to take it apart.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
I do
all right,
believe-
very good.
When we renovated.
Thanks, everybody.
When we renovated our house in Wilton, we took out a lot of the flooring.
How was your other weather down
Part of it here, part of
Oh,
it.
it's terrible. It's just as bad here.
For the trends.
I got you.
Take care.
Using all this black locust in that building, one that's ran with.
That's nice. Work.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, that's kind of.
It's right. I don't know. I can say they're gonna take all of You would have to do organic material for Bill, so I don't know why she would say she'd take the wood and probably just take it off recording. Well, it should actually disconnect. You can do it online, because we're still recording. I don't know how to do this. I think I can do it. Use this as a, oh, there it is, N.
The X is on the other side. Oh, exit.
Go
Go to
to,
the upper X.
go to the other X, and meeting
No,
for
that
all,
is-
and meeting for all. Now,
There you go, there you go.